This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. So that was disgusting. I think we can all agree that might have been one of the worst opening day experiences. See, like with Browns fans, we got so many to choose from that it's hard to pick a least favorite. Some people are going to say this reminds them of the opening game versus Pittsburgh, the year the Browns went 10-6. Some people are going to say this reminds them of the opening game of the 2019 season that foreshadowed doom to come. So does this game foreshadow doom? Or is it a kick in the mouth that the Browns needed in order to get things correct? We don't have the answers for that right now. But what we can talk about is what happened in this game specifically. And spoiler warning, if you want to point a finger offensively, this is the day to do it. Whoever you don't like on offense, if you're always in the comment section saying this guy stinks or that guy stinks or this guy's overrated, that guy's overrated, this is a good day to be mad at the offense, because anybody you point a finger at, you can make an argument did not play well in this game, because I don't think anybody played well in this game outside of maybe Jerome Ford played well in this game. Maybe Jerome Ford, he was the only one moving the ball a little bit in this game consistently throughout the whole game. Other than that, looked pretty sad out there offensively. I'm trying to pull up the numbers here for Jerome for you. Jerome had 3 and 7 to carry. Deshaun ran the ball well. We can also say that, right? But yeah, nobody played great in this one. And we'll get to the offense in just a minute. But we got to focus on what the defense did just to get it out the way. Now, the Browns gave up 33 points in this game. If you look at how those points got given up, a lot of them were field goals that the Browns gave up because they were either turning the ball over, fumbling, interceptions. Deshaun threw 2 of them, tip ball interceptions, but 2 interceptions. And then also turnover on downs. A lot of those happened in this game because the Browns pretty much got desperate at the end of it and just started going for it every time, which, again, I'm fine with. But that's about the only thing I'm fine with what happened offensively with this game. If you look at it, the defense really gave up 2 touchdowns. They gave up a 70-play drive early in the game to when CeeDee Lamb had an incredible pass. They made a big play there. You can't really be mad at that one. The second touchdown drive was a little bit more concerning because it was a 13-play drive, I believe, later in the first half. And those are only 2 times that the Cowboys got downfield, scored on you, and on your defense. You really gave up 14 points. The offense really heavily contributed to all the other 19 points that the Cleveland Browns gave up in this game. So I don't think the defense is the problem. Just get that out the way. I thought the secondary played really well. The pass rush wasn't there all game, but I think the secondary played so well that the Browns were willing to kind of let the secondary make the plays versus it being all on the pass rush like usual. And I think that was an adjustment that made a lot of sense to adjust to. So I think the secondary played pretty good, held up when they were asked to held up, gave up a couple plays, but you're going up against CeeDee Lamb, one of the best wide receivers in all of football. I think he did a good enough job there defensively. Special teams, and we'll get to offense, don't you worry. Special teams, gave up a punt return touchdown. So you're not going to get a good grade in a game where the punt coverage team gives up a punt return touchdown. Didn't think they were too good on the kick return stuff, but I thought Jalen Darden returned the ball pretty well for the Cleveland Browns. So there's that. And Dustin Hopkins made whatever field goals they asked him to make. Didn't really ask him to do much, but he made the ones that he was asked to make. So good on him there. The defense, special teams, not where I really got my beef with. Offense, yeah, man. Pick a guy. Really, like I could have a hat here with everybody responsible for the Cleveland Browns offense. Shake that up, pull a hat out, and complain about them for 10 minutes. This video could be 2 hours long of me just pulling names offensively and saying, hey, yeah, this is what he did wrong. It was awful. Now, it got better in the second half than it was in the first half, but honestly, it couldn't get worse than it was in the first half. And I'm not one to be dramatic or overreactionary to what I see here. The Browns' offense looked awful. And I don't think this was the case of, oh, the Dallas Cowboys were just destroying us and they were outplaying us and they were confusing us and they're just so talented that we couldn't get any off. I don't think that was the case. I think this set of Browns players, this set of coaches were more than fully capable of putting together a better outing versus the Dallas Cowboys than they did in this one. They just sucked. Like every single one of them sucked in this game. Capital S-U-C-K, sucked in this one. You could point at Amari Cooper, who dropped the touchdown. I mean, it was late in the game anyways, but he dropped the wide open touchdown. He wasn't good in this game. You can look at Jerry Jeudy, who did get a touchdown, but I mean, like, he wasn't getting open consistently in this game, left halfway through. David Njoku, who left with the injury, ankle injury there. Apparently, he's questionable to play next week. It just wasn't good. Your receivers weren't making plays. Early in this game, you had some drops by the receivers. And then when the wide receivers weren't dropping it, Deshaun was overthrowing it. I want to be clear here with Deshaun on this one. I've seen Deshaun struggle with accuracy while he's been in Cleveland, obviously. Not like that, though. I've never seen him overthrow as much as he did in this game. And the big thing that concerns me with Deshaun Watson is it still feels like there is just friction that exists on the offensive side of the ball. Now, the first year I was willing to blame that friction on a 700-day layoff. Makes sense. Last year, I was willing to blame that friction on a shoulder, and also he was coming in and out of injuries, didn't really get time. If it looks like this and we're like in week 9 of the season, the problem is Deshaun Watson. Now, I'm not there yet. I said I give Deshaun Watson about 8 weeks consecutive play before I make a definitive judgment on where I think he's going. But this was a definitive step in the wrong direction. And he's going to have to do considerable work over the next few weeks for me to feel as comfortable as I felt about him, even just going into this season, let alone anything higher than that. It was not good from Deshaun Watson. I know other things went wrong around Deshaun Watson. Wide receivers weren't catching the ball. The offensive line had all kind of pre-snap in penalties and all that stuff, and we're going to talk about that too. All of these things are true. But what's also true is that Deshaun did not play well. Like, you can't look at this game and say that Deshaun played as good as he could have. It's not even close. It's not even close. I would have expected a better game from Jameis Winston, let alone Deshaun Watson. Like, we talked about it. The bar is high for Deshaun Watson. He's got to come close. I can't lower the bar just to make it closer for him to miss. Like, he's got to reach it. And this wouldn't have been acceptable for Jameis Winston. It wouldn't have been acceptable for DTR with the full week of practice. It wouldn't have been acceptable for anybody but maybe PJ Walker. So we cannot act like this is something that you can hand wave around and say, oh, well, he'll get better catching next week and he'll get better blocking next week and it'll be fine, and kind of like push it down the road. Nah, man, this is a real concern. Why does it always feel like there's friction every time he drops back to throw the ball? We've changed offensive coordinators. We've changed offensive systems. We've changed wide receivers. What is the problem? Because at this point, a lot of people are going to look at it and say, it's you. It's Deshaun that's the problem. Especially when they've seen other quarterbacks be in and it not feel that way. Is it Kevin? Is it Deshaun? I don't know. I've seen Kevin out there with different quarterbacks that don't feel like this. Again, I'll give him 8 weeks. If he is playing well, it's just one game. But if it looks like this or slightly better versions of this for 7 more weeks, we got to call a spade a spade. Like, we got to just say what it is and get on with it, right? Got to eat that L and move on to the next. Because this ain't no. This is the Deshaun Watson everybody else been talking about. Like the Deshaun Watson that makes you worse. I'm not convinced that Deshaun Watson made the offense better today. I don't think the offense was going to be good today, but I'm not convinced he made it better. I'm just not. I can't look at what he did in this one, and maybe I'll look at the all 22 and feel much different, but I can't look at this game and tell you I feel that Deshaun Watson made things better than they would have been. Like, I can't imagine it would have been much worse with Jameis out there. Now, let me be clear on what I'm saying. I'm not advocating for Jameis Winston to start. I'm just saying this is just so far under the standard of what you would expect, and he has to play better than this. Has to. There's no excuse that can be made about this performance. It's awful. Another area where there's no excuse for is on the coaching staff. I thought this was an embarrassment from the coaching staff offensively. Ken Dorsey, Kevin Stefanski, both your resumes suggest that you're much better than this. Like, both of your resumes suggest that you are so much better than this. This is the worst. This is the worst I've felt about a Kevin Stefanski game plan, I think, since he's been here. This did not feel like Kevin Stefanski. The play calling was weird. He called a lot of screens on. This felt more like Cliff Kingsbury than it felt like Kevin Stefanski. And if you know how I feel about Cliff Kingsbury, that's the ultimate demerit. Don't know what happened in this one. Maybe they got too caught up in trying to make Deshaun comfortable and trying to get rid of the ball quickly against a pass rush because they were worried about the tackles being out. But yeah, man, this wasn't cooking. If that was the solution of the problem, we didn't cook up a solution. It sucked. It was awful. Another area where you got to hit on coaching is the amount of illegal procedure penalties in this game, the amount of pre-snap penalties in this game. If I weren't a Browns fan, I would find it comical because it was like 10 of them. 10 of them consistently putting you behind the line of scrimmage, consistently putting you behind the sticks, putting Deshaun Watson in obvious throw situations, and then he's not playing great. So now he's not completing passes in those obvious throw situations, and you look like a goddamn mess in the first half. Second half, a little bit better, but I'm going to be honest, it didn't look good. It only looked good because we were comparing it to what we saw in the first half. A mess. You let Dallas come in here and embarrass you. And I'm going to be honest, Dallas didn't even have to work that hard. Like, you did this to yourself. The defense came up to play. The offense beat themselves. The offense was minus 19 in my books. Like, if the Browns just did not play any offense at all versus what they played today, I think they would have lost by 4 less points. That's how bad I think the offense was. Just inept. Now, was this just one game? Was this just because the preseason and they didn't play in the preseason and we'll see what they are? I don't know, man. Some of this stuff feels like rust. And it could be fixed going forward. Some of this stuff feels a little bit more serious than that. So I don't know if it's a one size fit all. Like, it's going to get better next week, but how much better? Are they going to be good at any point? Because from what we saw today, to get the good, they got a hell of a mountain to climb. Just to get the good, let alone great. Didn't see the separation you wanted to see from these wide receivers. Didn't see the type of separation you wanted to see from David Njoku when he was out there. You just didn't see it. Drops look bad. Again, it's the NFL. You could play like shit one week and look like magic the next week. But we got to be honest about what this was. This is garbage. This is garbage. And this ain't garbage. We're going to throw away the tape and not look at it. No, you got to look at the tape. You got to figure out what went wrong here. There's just so many places you could blame this. The one thing I don't want to do, and the one thing I want to make it clear I'm not doing, is blaming this on one thing. No, this ain't just because you didn't play in the preseason. This isn't just because you had injuries in training camp and you couldn't get your starters together. This isn't just because you switched offensive coordinators. This isn't just because Deshaun Watson played bad. This isn't just because you were missing a left tackle. This was because of all those things. And this did not have to happen. This was not inevitable. It did not have to be like this. There is a world where you come into this game with those same sets of circumstances and you put together a competitive effort. This was the worst possible way you could have played it. I'm disappointed in Kevin Stefanski for this performance. I'm disappointed in Deshaun Watson. I'm disappointed in Amari Cooper. I'm disappointed in David Njoku. I'm disappointed in the offensive line coach, Andy Dickerson. I'm disappointed in everything involved with this offense because it did not have to be this embarrassing. Even when you consider all the factors that led into it. This was not something that you wave your hands up, man, what you gonna do? No. It didn't have to be like this. And it shouldn't ever be like this. This is crazy. This is crazy. So for Deshaun Watson, they booed you. I don't want to hear you complain about it. I don't want to hear anybody complain about the booing. You deserved it. You had like 30 yards of total offense in the first half. And you're talking about how you're going to be one of the best quarterbacks. Yeah, you're going to get booed. You're going to get booed. I don't want to hear anything about it. I don't want to hear anything about how the fans were booing and we need to be more supportive. I get it, but this ain't the time. They need to be better than this. And it's going to take more than one good week against Jacksonville for people to just get back on board. It's going to take weeks. You have to beat a real team for people to take you seriously at their performance like that. And you're going to have to do it while looking great on offense. Now, again, it's 1 week. A lot of teams look awful in week one. They're going to be fine by the end of the season. Right? Cincinnati lost to New England. Do I think Cincinnati's not going to make the playoffs? No, I think Cincinnati's going to make the playoffs. I don't care that they lost to New England. They're still going to make the playoffs. But you got to do the work, man. You got to do the work. They got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. I think there's still a lot you can glean out this season. There's no way I think that this is what the Browns offense is. I know they're better than this. I know the offense is better than this. How much better, we'll find out. But this cannot be a good representation or an accurate representation of who they are. They got to prove this one wrong over the next month. But yeah, man, this is a tough one. Don't know what to tell anybody. Tough loss. Got to move on to next week. Got to beat Jacksonville. And at the end of the day, it's a loss against the NFC team, so it's not going to hurt you as much in the wild card. But right now, just want to win every game you can. Right? It's the beginning of the season. You got 16 more chances. No, my bad. Yeah, 16 more chances to rectify this situation. So that's the upside. It's only week 1. You got week 2, you got week 3, you got week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8, week 9, all those weeks to rectify this situation. But we got to be honest about it. It didn't look pretty. That doesn't mean we overreact. That doesn't mean we want guys fired. That doesn't mean we throw certain players overboard or whatever. Just means we acknowledge this team has some problems offensively and we pay attention to them, see what they do next week, and see if they're making progress on those issues. Because the amount of illegal procedure penalties broke me. Like, you're not going to beat a team like that. You're not going to beat Jacksonville next week if you had that many illegal procedures. It wasn't just one thing, but that didn't help. Deshaun didn't play well. All those things. But I do want to say this. As much as I hate how this game went, and I hate how it's going to hurt the fan base and hurt some of the fans that win in this game, this sucked. We all know it sucked. We hate feeling like this, but we've been here before with this team in week 1. Ultimately, what this game says about the Cleveland Browns for the rest of the season is going to be dictated by how the Browns respond to this. This game will be ominous if the Browns play like garbage for the rest of the year. This game will be forgetful if the Browns play good for the rest of the year. In 2019, the Browns had a horrible opening game, and it became ominous because they played bad for the rest of the season. In 2020, the Browns had a horrible opening game against a division opponent, but it became forgetful or forgotten about because Browns won the rest of the season. The questions you had after that game weren't questions you had for the rest of the season. The offense looked bad in 2020, first game. We're like, oh, do we got to bench Baker? They come back. Baker looks good for the rest of the season. We're fine. Same's up for Deshaun Watson. He looked awful in this game. Even when you consider all the things, he looked bad. There's no buts around it. He played bad football today. But he can play good football next week. How you start the season, your first game, takes a back seat to how you finish every time. Remember when the Browns had that amazing start in 2022? Well, against Baker Mayfield and the Carolina Panthers, and they won that on that game-winning field goal by Cade York, and we felt so good about Cade York after that game. We felt so good about the Cleveland Browns with Jacoby Brissett after that game, and then they won 7 games, and we did not care about how we felt about those guys after that Week 1 game. At the end of the season, it wasn't the same. Because how you start is so much less significant than how you finish. And how the Browns finish, it starts next week versus Jacksonville, right? How do they come out and play against Jacksonville? Are they embarrassed? Are they playing like a team that was embarrassed last week and decide that they're going to correct the record going forward? Is this offense going to play like an offense that knows that what they put out there was below their standard? Not something that's within the realm of what they could put out there. No, that shit was below their standard, and they're going to show you next week. Is that how they come out? That'll paint what this game looks like. It could be a fun aberration to talk about, like those other examples, or it could be an ominous sign that pointed to destruction like 2019 did. It's up to them. It's up to how they finish. A strong first game gets forgotten by a bad finish every time. And a weak first game gets forgotten because you had a strong finish all the time. It's about how you finish. Next week, you start your finish. You get one game like this, where you look like garbage, it's inexplainable. One game, okay, that's what it is. This game was that. You used it against Dallas. Now we got to see what's up with you for the rest of the season. And we're going to find out who they are after this week. We're going to find out if that leadership is as strong as we think it is in that locker room. If that locker room and that leadership and Kevin and all that stuff, if it is what we think it is, we'll find out by how they respond against a good opponent against Jacksonville next week. It's about how you finish. And how you finish starts in Jacksonville, Florida. So get to it. And speaking of, I'm going to get to it too. I'm going to get to work dropping these videos, talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, talking about that upcoming matchup. So you want to see more of that, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Ding that notification bell. Let's get it. Let's get on to the finish.